Frank Abagnale, and I am a document consultant and have worked for the FBI for 38 years. I had a very unusual beginning. I ran away from home at a very young age of 16 and impersonated a doctor and a lawyer and an airline pilot and wrote about $2.5 million worth of checks before I was old enough to drink at 21. I was arrested, went to prison, served time in France, Sweden, and the United States, and when I was 26, the government took me out of prison on the condition I go to work for an agency of the government, which was the FBI, and I did. And it was supposed to be for a short period of time until I finished my sentence, but I've stayed on 26 years beyond my requirement to do so. Today, the Bureau occupies about 70% of my time. The rest of my time I devote to a few clients that I work for on retainer, that I work with on different aspects of fraud and security for their company, their clients, and their protecting their businesses. First Intuit brought me on board because they wanted to design a much more secure check than the generic check they were offering to their customers, because they knew that check forgery was a $20 billion a year business and it affected small businesses tremendously. And banks don't always pay on forged checks, so you can go out of business very quickly if they get a bad check go through for a large sum and it's not made good on. So they wanted to make a more secure check, so they hired me to help them design a much more sophisticated check that could protect it from being chemically washed or altered or counterfeited or replicated. But then they started to realize that fraud was a major issue for small businesses, and they felt that my expertise could help them better educate their small businesses. And small businesses are the ones that are most victimized by these types of crimes. Well, the number one concern I have is embezzlement, because I have seen embezzlement just skyrocket over the last 15, 20 years. If you own a business, you need to make sure where your money's going and who's handling your money. My second concern is check forgery, because it is such a simple crime today to replicate a check, duplicate a check, or even just take your account number off your check and then put it on their checks and start writing checks which debit off of your account. So today, more than ever, a small business person has to be a little wiser, a little smarter, and needs to be paying attention to those things and not under the impression that this can't happen to me, because it does happen constantly. And once you lose your money, in most cases, you'll never get your money back. A couple things. Number one, make sure that your bookkeeper does not write, sign, and reconcile checks. You need to segregate those duties. You do want to occasionally bring in an auditor to audit the books to make sure everything is legitimate. It doesn't take very long to do that, but it also keeps people honest, because they know you bring in auditors to check things. The second thing was to make sure you're using a secure check that can't be copied or chemically altered, or where they can lift off the toner or alter the dollar amount or who the check's made out to, or even replicate the check at home. Intuit, they're printing millions upon millions of checks, so they're able to bring the cost of actually making that secure document very secure, but the cost way down. And the third thing I think is most important in all businesses today, especially small businesses, to just be aware that fraud is a huge problem. It's about $950 billion a year in the United States, almost $1 trillion. The ProAdvisor needs to alert their client that they suspect there's some fraud and make them aware of that fraud. But I think you need to get to the right person, so in that case I would only want to be speaking to the owner of that company, because a lot of times the frauds are committed by second in charge, third in charge, the CFO, the CEO, the controller of a company. You need to educate your clients. You know, people are basically honest, so they don't think every day in a deceptive way. They're not sitting in their business going, I wonder how somebody ripped me off, I wonder what that meant by that phone call, I wonder what that transaction or email meant. That's your job, to educate them and say, look, these are the things you need to know about. For example, protecting your identity. What should people do to protect their identity of their individual, their family, their business? I don't use a debit card, to be honest with you. I only use a credit card. My wife, for example, owns a small business. Every purchase she makes for that business, she uses a credit card. And the reason for that is, under the federal laws, you have zero liability with your credit card. So I've found that whether you're a small business or you're an individual, a credit card is the safest form of payment that exists today on the face of the earth. When you use a credit card, you don't have to be concerned about having any losses occur against you. Years ago, the Bureau was concerned about agents changing reports, so they asked me to find out or develop a pen that you couldn't do that. So I developed what is known today as the Uniball 207. Today that pen's about $2, a refill's maybe 50 cents, but it is the only pen in the world that when you write with it, once you've written with it, you cannot remove it. There is no chemical on the face of the earth that can change it.